The astropathic transmission echoes across decades from the void. Sequence 3-4-1, the Mercy Kyrie. It crosses the dark faster than ships, slower than grief, a code that outlives its senders, repeating from somewhere in the Immaterium's hungry depths. Follow it to a silhouette against the warp's bruised luminescence, the Pax Misericordiae, cathedral-hulled and blessed with twin spires. In her observation dome, votive lamps gutter like dying stars, each flame once representing a life saved, a wound healed, a soul delivered from suffering. The Imperium builds hospital ships to rescue its wounded, contain its plagues, and dispose of its shame. This is the documented function. These Mercy-class vessels follow the Great Crusades, gathering broken bodies that fall in humanity's endless wars. Many never return from the warp. Some are taken by storms and hungers that prowl the Immaterium. Some are sent by doctrine, by ledger, by a mercy that doubles as elimination. This record traces three converging lines: the material pipeline that lifts bodies from trench mud to sickbay, the doctrinal framework of mercy through obedience that governs care, and the administrative mechanisms determining who lives, who enters quarantine, and who vanishes without arithmetic remainder. Above, chartists trace shipping lanes across star maps like prayer lines, each convoy moving under the Navi Nobilite's dangerous grace. Below, in trenches reeking of promethium and fear, stretchers sink into blood mud. A guardsman blinks grit from burned eyes, while a medicae wraps his stump and lies about available beds. The wounded become inventory. Pain becomes logistics. Mercy-class vessels swear sacred disarmament. No macro batteries, no torpedoes, only hymns, scalpels, and Geller field geometry. This vow purchases passage and invites predators. Within their hulls, the Order Hospitaller enforces quarantine protocol. Omicron, isolate, intone, incinerate. Compliance constitutes sacrament. Disobedience spreads contagion. The Departamento Munitorum maintains casualty ledgers meant to comfort generals and terrify quartermasters. They balance perfectly even when ships vanish. Replacement quotas rise like tide to cover absence. When hospital vessels disappear during routine warp translation, patient manifests simply transfer to other ships. No gaps disturb the administrative calm. In a dimly lit records chamber, a medicae adept consults her manifest with trembling hands. Her finger hovers over an entry, then presses red wax into place. The seal bears her personal signet, but authorization flows from higher authority. Status: translation extended. The Mercy Kyrie continues its eternal broadcast, 3-4-1, barely audible beneath the hymns that accompany every warp translation. Somewhere in the Immaterium, votive lamps still burn in a cathedral's dome, tended by hands that may no longer remember why they perform this sacred duty. The journey begins in mud and ends in manifest entries. At forward dressing stations, triage is arithmetic with blood on it. Amputate within 4 minutes to preserve the limb. Beyond 8 minutes to preserve the soldier. Mediset orderlies work ankle-deep in promethium-soaked earth, their bone saws rinsed in boiled water, their prayers abbreviated by necessity. Those requiring more than standard protocols receive morphia and benediction. The rest receive abandonment. A standard Imperial Guard Corps produces 12,000 wounded per solar day during active operations. This figure represents only documented injuries requiring evacuation, not the walking wounded who continue fighting, nor casualties processed directly into corpse starch production. Medicae. Dropships climb through tracer fire in scheduled sorties, their cargo nets sagging under human weight. They carry more corpses than casualties by design. The dead serve as cushioning during atmospheric exit, their final service rendered to those who might yet survive. Orbital processing centers complete the transformation from persons to cargo through systematic dehumanization. The wounded receive classification tattoos indicating injury severity, resource allocation tier, and expected recovery duration. Departamento Munitorum. Scribes calculate bed days against campaign duration, balancing healing costs against replacement expenses. Navis Nobilite. Houses provide warp passage under ancient contracts. Order Hospitaller. Sisters enforce doctrine while administering care, their catechism of mercy through obedience governing every interaction. Adeptus Mechanicus. Engine seers maintain Geller field integrity with binary prayers and blessed oils. Commissariat. Officers ensure compliance through presence alone, their bolt pistols worn like liturgical vestments. Mercy-class vessels displace 47,000 tons when fully loaded, carrying berth space for 15,000 patients in tiered configurations. Average voyage duration spans 43 days through stable warp currents, extending to 112 days when storms twist the Imperium. Compiled mortality rates suggest 17% perish during transit, with another 4% consigned to quarantine rings upon arrival. Munitorum scribes meticulously avoid cross-referencing these figures with documented ship losses. Their ledgers remain pristine, casualties rebalancing like blessed arithmetic. Control mechanisms manifest through seemingly medical procedures. Purity inspections determine not only health status but passenger worthiness. Scars suggesting heretical contact warrant isolation. Mutations indicating genetic corruption demand elimination. Sedation quotas follow creed rather than clinical need, measured in vials and litanies per cycle. The faithful receive comfort. The suspect receive restraints. The condemned receive silence. In cargo holds designated for medical supplies, Red Seal quarantine caskets stack beside communion. Oil and blessed bandages. These containers bear no patient identifiers, only numerical sequences and sacred seals. Their manifest entries reference. Clause 17. Disposal in the Imperium, authorized when contamination exceeds devotional containment. The clause appears across 17 administrative codices, each defining contamination through increasingly broad interpretations. Internal ledgers maintain separate vessel categories. Standard medical transports receive complete routing documentation. Ships designated O-Red appear with destination columns deliberately blank, not omitted through clerical error, but systematically voided by administrative protocol. These vessels depart with full manifests and supply inventories, their return schedules marked as variable pending devotional assessment. The conveyor continues turning. Bodies flow upward through filtration systems that prioritize institutional needs over individual survival, each stage processing human suffering according to doctrines that transcend mercy. The Great Apostasy left the Imperium bleeding from spiritual wounds deeper than any battlefield trauma. When Sebastian Thor's reforms stripped the ecclesiarchy of men under arms through the decree passive, the Church required new methods to demonstrate penitence and purpose. Cardinal Bucharest's war fleets had burned 17 systems in the Emperor's name. The new order demanded healing hands rather than bolter barrels. From this necessity emerged the Mercy-class charter, vessels that would heal without fighting, bearing double chapel Geller sanctification and hull shrines to saints of anesthesia rather than conquest. The Order Hospitaller embraced a catechism carved into companionways and memorized under pain of reassignment, to heal, to witness, to close the eye. This sacred duty represented their penance for the Imperium's sins, transforming former instruments of war into floating cathedrals of mercy. Admiralty memos reveal the pragmatic compromise underlying pious rhetoric. Unarmed Mercy-class vessels would receive priority warp passage under sacred protection protocols. Their double-blessed Geller fields granted precedence over military convoys. Naval escorts would divert resources to protect these vulnerable hulls. In exchange, the sisters accepted external command during defined crises. Quarantine protocols placed vessels under commissariat authority until purity was re-established. Inquisitorial requisition could seize crew, patients, or entire ships without appeal when circumstances warrant. The signature blocks read like negotiated surrender. Lord Admiral, Confessor General, Ordo Representative, ink pooling where their jurisdictions overlapped. Sister Hospitaller Cordelia's journal entries, recovered from the Sancta Verena's debris field, document the crushing reality behind sacred purpose. During the Mordian Iron Guard's Ghoul Stars campaign, she processed 300 patients per Medicaid across 17-hour shifts. Her handwriting deteriorates through exhaustion. Day 47. The bone saw sings hymns now. I no longer remember teaching it the melody. Sister Agatha collapsed during surgery. We continued because the wounded do not pause for our weakness. The vessels themselves embodied architectural theology. Double chapel configurations placed primary altars fore and aft, their combined hymnal harmonics strengthening Geller field integrity through sacred resonance. Hull shrines to Saint Aspera. The Breathless and Saint Quietus the Final offered specialized intercession for peaceful death and blessed anesthesia. 3 traditions governed operations with religious precision. The Silent Ward occupied sealed decks prepared for cases beyond conventional treatment, conditions requiring isolation from both healthy crew and ordinary patients. The Fasting of the 9th Hour preceded every warp translation, crew abstaining while chanting protective litanies. Most critically, the Tri-Seal Mercy Writ of Scuttling required unanimous approval from Commissar, Canoness, and Engineer before vessel abandonment or destruction. Cordelia's final entries reveal growing institutional tension. The Geller field stuttered during translation. For 17 seconds, our surgical lamps flickered while something pressed against failing barriers. 3 patients died, not from wounds, but from what entered through wavering protection. The question haunted every translation. When Geller fields wavered between reality and nightmare, who commanded survival? Priest with sacred authority, Commissar with temporal power, or machine spirit with technical knowledge? Deck plans reveal social architecture disguised as medical necessity. The Pax Misericordiae's internal geometry transforms suffering into hierarchy, need into doctrine, mercy into control. Mass wards stretch across decks 7 through 12, where wounded lie stacked in tiers like ammunition reserves. Each berth measures precisely 1 meter by 2. Enough space for a body, insufficient for dignity. Blessed gauze curtains provide the illusion of privacy while permitting constant observation by medics orderlies who patrol with clipboards and bolt cutters. Officer convalescence bays occupy Deck 3, featuring actual beds with mattresses, private ablution facilities, and viewport access to the Emperor's Light. Proximity to salvation remains reserved for those whose rank survived their wounds. Between these extremes, commissars pace triage lines with bolt pistols prominently displayed, a reminder that courage, like medical supplies, must be rationed according to institutional need. Plague isolation rings encircle the ship's core, sealed behind null field generators that hum with barely contained energy. These barriers prevent more than disease transmission. They contain whispers, nightmares, and influences that medical doctrine cannot classify. Surgical theaters occupy the vessel's heart, where bone saws sing hymns programmed into their motor housings. The litany of precision guides amputation cuts. The canticle of suturing blesses wound closure. Each instrument bears micro-etched prayers, their sacred geometry supposedly preventing demonic intrusion through surgical openings. Ossuary recyclers process the daily dead with industrial efficiency, reducing corpses to blessed ash and recyclable biomass. Chapel engine hybrids blur the boundary between sacred and mechanical. Their choir harmonics calibrated to stabilize Geller field resonance through acoustic prayer. Here, voices match oscillation curves in acts of faith disguised as maintenance protocols. Control mechanisms permeate every compartment. Incense saturation masks the rot of infected wounds and the sulfurous scent preceding demonic manifestation. Vox loops broadcast protective litanies on 17-hour cycles, their endless repetition preventing crew and patients from dwelling on forbidden thoughts. Purity seals cover every hatch, blessed by different saints for specific contaminations: Saint Euphrates for plague, Saint Macaris for heretical corruption, Saint Sabbat for warp taint. Through Sergeant Voss, a Lehman Russ commander recovering from severe burns, we observe patient hierarchies forming along injury severity and expected recovery duration. Veterans barter favors with orderlies for extra antiseptic. Raw recruits trade boots for seats near heat vents. Officers receive priority treatment and superior rations. Those requiring extensive resources or showing corruption signs find themselves transferred to lower decks, where treatment becomes increasingly perfunctory. Voss notices details medical staff ignore through necessity. Stutter marks. On Geller chronometers, mechanical hiccups systematically logged as devotional irregularities rather than equipment failures. Black cylinders. In observation bays, labeled as emergency medical supplies but shaped like casket drives prepared for deep void jettison. Red tally slates. Maintained by junior medici, recording names that never appear on official patient manifests. The architecture serves multiple functions simultaneously: healing the wounded, containing the corrupted, processing the condemned through systems that transform individual suffering into institutional efficiency. Each deck represents a different stage in this progression, from hope through resignation to elimination. The ship keeps time by wounds, not chronometers. Sister Cordelia measures her day in amputations, reciting the litany of numbness between bone saw cuts. Let flesh be stone, let pain be distant thunder. Her hands no longer shake despite exhaustion that reaches marrow deep. 7 procedures since morning prayers, each amputation a small prayer against the darkness pressing against their hull. The bone saw's hymnal provides surgical rhythm while she counts sutures like rosary beads. Guardsman Voss practices eating with his vat-grown replacement hand, pale synthetic flesh, twitching with alien reflexes that betray its artificial origin. The appendage anticipates his movements, snatching bread before conscious decision, spilling synth broth with eager fingers that learn him as he learns them. Each bite carries metallic aftertaste, the ship's synth plasma supplements leaching into everything, even into the rare moments when he attempts laughter. Navigator Quintanus bleeds from his third eye when the ship's hymnal drops half a note during evening prayers. The psychic organ detects harmonic irregularities before instruments consent to register deviation, weeping precise tears that stain his bandages crimson. He records pitch variations in tight script, while cogitators show nothing. His consciousness stretches between reality and nightmare, monitoring Geller field integrity through senses that transcend mechanical measurement. Astropath Varen taps out 3 short, 4 long, 1 fading pulse, muscle memory of distress protocols embedded so deeply that unconscious minds broadcast them. Her fingers drum against the cot's metal frame, transmitting the Mercy Kyrie through dreams, while Medicae staff tease her gently until the tapping wakes entire wards. Then no one speaks. The sequence is not a lullaby. Scarcity economics govern every aspect of survival. Real painkillers stretch through synthetic substitutes that paint soft hallucinations at vision's edges. Children walking where no corridors exist, doors opening onto desert wind. Blood supplies require augmentation with synth plasma that foams gray and cold in transfusion bags. Recycled air grows thick with incense and iron tang. Candle smoke and cauterized flesh competing with oxygen processors struggling against tainted atmosphere. Black markets bloom where authority cannot bend. Clean bandages trade for guard duty exemptions. Extra rations pass in metal cups, counted by desperate gazes. Whispered deals revolve around pain sponges, scraps of blessed cloth promised to absorb suffering when clenched between teeth. They work when belief runs strong. When faith fails, they occupy mouths so screaming sounds smaller. Between shifts, Medicaid staff practice counting the thousand, a coping ritual where each name lives they imagine saving that day. An artilleryman promised another sunrise, a colony worker whose cough broke, a herdsman whose leg will carry him home. The number reaches 1,000 only when they add the mercy killed. No one speaks this calculation aloud. Varen's fingers tap again. 3, 4, 1. Then, once more, twice more, thrice more. An addendum forbidden in standard catechism. These extra signals summon not rescue vessels, but the Ordo Sepulturum, whose response protocols remain classified beyond her clearance level. What contamination warrants the forbidden 3-tap addendum? How does a navigator sense Geller instability before? Instruments register failure? Mercy, aboard a hospital ship, ascends a ladder printed on oilskin charts and memorized under pain of reassignment. Each rung represents escalating threat, escalating response, escalating cost. Stage 1 through Stage 4. Epidemiology becomes catechism when unreality presses against hull plating. Stage 1 encompasses conventional sepsis and gangrene, enemies with predictable vectors and material solutions. Antiseptic litanies accompany surgical scrubs, while maggot cultivation vats bubble in warm chambers, their blessed larvae devouring necrotic tissue with holy appetite. Tech priests maintain breeding chambers through binary prayers, mechanical voices harmonizing with sisters' hymns. Mortality curves fall when supplies arrive, rise when they run thin. Here, mercy remains technique and time. Stage 2 manifests as warp echo psychosis, patients sharing nightmares they could not have heard, identical gardens of rust, doors opening onto teeth. Voices whisper through ventilation systems, promising analgesia in exchange for oaths no priest can sanction. Countermeasures involve isolation cells with mirrored icons and hymn corrective therapy, tuned by pitch cogitators. Sedation helps until it does not. Commissars prowl to cull the contagiously hopeless. Stage 3 reveals Nurgle's gifts blooming beneath saint candles. Skin gardens spelling prayers none recall. Learning. Fevers breeding in cycles aligned to choir shifts. Quarantine rings engage their null field projectors, flattening contaminated air. Surgical purification demands wide excisions. Limb sacrifice, sealed cyst extraction, followed by null-blessed unguents that sting like cold iron. The living curse their healers, then thank them through clenched teeth. Many never reach thanks. Stage 4 represents demonic intrusion through wound vectors, injury sites becoming dimensional gates, surgical incisions weeping immaterial ichor, amputated limbs continuing movement despite nervous system separation. Geller harmonics reach maximum intensity, while sanctioned psychers burn their minds containing breaches. Sisters load bolt pistols beside 4 ships. Mercy, at this rung, becomes a round to the cranium, administered with prayer and practiced steadiness. The machine's spiritual synthesis governs all responses. Incense and algorithm work in tandem. Tech priests chanting binary cant while tightening couplings, choirs chasing oscillation, drift with metronomes, hospitalers scrubbing and cutting to rhythms derived from cogitator printouts. Sacred oils anoint circuit boards while blessed data streams carry protective prayers through the ship's nervous system. Yet, language betrays the system. Geller stutters appear on chronometers as narrow lacerations of time, but reports rename them devotional irregularities to avoid audit penalties. Minor scribe Valdris signs these downgrades, meeting harmony quotas by reclassifying emergencies as routine maintenance issues. His ledgers balance perfectly through creative interpretation of technical specifications. Navigator Quintanus files variance reports at 0.7 Hz below Him baseline. Instruments render them within pious tolerance. Valdris initials the margins while lamps flicker. On the ward, Sister Cordelia feels deck plating shiver a heartbeat too long, then resumes cutting without looking up. What happens when euphemistic reporting collides with genuine warp storms? Who benefits when mechanical warnings become devotional metrics? The Pax Misericordiae translates into warp storm malediction at 1347 hours, ship time. Reality fractures along predictable lines. The ship's hymnal drops a full octave without mechanical cause. Choir harmonics plunging from sacred frequencies into registers that vibrate through bone and marrow. Geller field stutters. Emergency lumens thin to amber. Surgical theaters bathed in hellish twilight. Gravity fluctuates in measured intervals. Bone saws float in defiance of physics while scalpels orbit their wielders like metallic prayer beads, spinning with malevolent precision. Navigator Quintanus screams as his third eye hemorrhages, the psychic organ rupturing under pressures no instruments register. His cry peels paint from bulkheads in strips that curl like dying flesh, acoustic force exceeding structural tolerances. Blood runs upward along walls, defying gravity's confused pull. Alarms shriek across 17 decks. Auspex screens bloom with static roses. Seal section red. Commissar Thorne's voice cuts through chaos, bolt pistol clearing leather with practiced efficiency. Blast doors slam shut with pneumatic finality. Sister Cordelia's hand trembles over a mercy syringe, her patient's wounds weeping impossible colors that shift between spectrum and nightmare. The guardsman's burn sites sprout crystalline growths, singing in frequencies beyond human hearing. She whispers the litany of ending, pulls the plunger. The body quiets. The room does not. The Geller heartbeat hiccups again. Hull icons begin bleeding oil, sacred Aquilas weeping black tears that trace wing patterns across deck plating. Temperature drops 15 degrees in 30 seconds, atmospheric processors struggling against dimensional intrusion. Frost writes blasphemous litanies across observation ports in reverse Gothic script that burns retinas when read, letters forming without human agency. Something vast and hungry responds to the ship's failing hymnal from beyond the veil. The reply is appetite made manifest, pressing against weakening barriers with intelligence that predates human civilization. The ship shudders under a tension that could unmake continents. Mass Ward Gamma becomes a killing floor. Infected patients turn on caregivers with surgical implements, movements coordinated by malevolent purpose transcending individual will. Sisters hospitaler move with practiced mercy, healing hands now delivering bolt rounds to the most corrupted sister. Agatha puts 3 rounds center mass into a patient whose chest cavity has become a screaming mouth, each shot a prayer for peaceful death. Astropath Valian, eyes white with psychic overload, taps out 341 with bloody fingers against her restraint chair. 3 short, 4 long, 1 fading. Then the forbidden addendum. 3 additional pulses that summon not rescue but the Ordo Sepulturum. Her transmission burns through the warp like a flare, reaching ears that listen for exactly this signal. Silent wards activate containment protocols. Null field generators engage with harmonic screams. Casket drives begin cycling, preparing for a mass jettison of living and dead alike. Black cylinders lock into rotation, indicator runes flipping from catechumenal green to absolution red. Scribe Valdris prays over Auspex readings, watching devotional irregularity metrics spike beyond measurement. Engine seer Maltheus's binary cant breaks mid-verse. Glory to the Omnissiah. Mechanical voice stuttering into wet silence as cogitators fail throughout the ship. The Mercy Kyrie signal fades to static. In the Immaterium, something listens to the silence and finds it acceptable. Vox silence arrives like policy. The Pax Misericordiae ceases transmission at 1347 hours, ship time, and never resumes. Within 72 hours, Admiralty stamps cascade across requisition forms, never returned. The designation carries administrative weight equivalent to combat loss, but requires no wreckage verification, no survivor testimony, no investigation beyond cursory astropathic sweeps that detect only void silence. Families receive standardized grief catechisms printed on blessed parchment. Your beloved served the Emperor's mercy unto final translation. Their sacrifice sanctifies the Immaterium through faithful suffering. Departamento Munitorum. Casualty processing centers distribute these notices in batches, signatures applied by autoquill to maintain efficiency. Munitorum ledgers barely fluctuate. Replacement quotas rise like tide to cover absence. 15,000 patient berths redistributed across remaining Mercy-class vessels. Supply allocations rebalanced through algorithmic precision. The arithmetic suggests losses were pre-calculated, statistical models accounting for vessel disappearance before departure authorizations were signed. Forms proliferate with bureaucratic fertility. Mortis Delta certificates declaring presumptive death, notices of mercy applied. Confirming final sacraments administered in absentia. Clause 17. C. Cross-referenced with ORED designations through administrative protocols that transform tragedy into procedure. These documents were not created in response to disaster. They were already waiting. Scribe Valdris's signature recurs across downgrade authorizations with suspicious frequency. Pattern analysis reveals incentivized negligence. His promotion metrics improved when harmony quotas were met through creative interpretation rather than accurate reporting. Each euphemistic reclassification earned commendation points, while genuine emergency reports triggered audit penalties. The system rewards those who mask mechanical failure as devotional irregularity. The astropathic addendum triggered sealed protocols buried in Ministorum Inquisition concordats. Ordo Sepulturum received astropath Veren's forbidden transmission within hours. Fleet Command received tri-seal instructions to deny return vectors. Ordo Representative, Lord Admiral, Confessor. General authorizing systematic abandonment through converging jurisdictions. Subtle arithmetic emerges through cross-referenced records. Cyprian Mundi's outsystem hospital station decommissions. Exactly 15,000 births within the same 72-hour window, citing supply chain optimization. A manufacturum cancels synth plasma shipments earmarked for the vanished vessel, selling forward at premium rates. A Shrine World's choir receives revised hymn schedules to cover unexpected silence in the warp. Coincidence becomes repetition, becomes choreography. Through administratum records, we trace bureaucratic transformation of individual tragedy into institutional policy. Emergency becomes procedure through euphemistic language. Translation extended replaces lost in warp storm. Devotional assessment pending substitutes for presumed destroyed. Mercy applied covers abandoned to die. Each phrase carries legal weight while obscuring human cost beneath devotional rhetoric. The system functions with mechanical precision. By week's end, the Mercy Kyrie becomes a ledger entry, 15,000 souls converted into administrative efficiency, through language that sanctifies disposal while denying suffering. The primary twist lies buried in redacted Ministorum Inquisition concordats, archived under penance seals and accessible only through tri-authority clearance. Policy stated without euphemism. When plague signatures or demonic intrusion exceed devotional containment thresholds, hospital ships are not recalled. They are guided deeper into the warp, their coordinates sealed under penance protocols. The administrative euphemism, translation extension, thresholds appear objective on parchment, spore density per cubic meter, Him drift beyond 0.8 Hz, psyker attrition exceeding 3 per watch. But discretion lives between numbers. Confessors judge fervor, engineers assess tolerances, inquisitors calculate risk to the species. A chorus of signatures transforms medical prognosis into systematic elimination. This represents institutional logic, not sadism. Contaminated returns could unmake entire sectors through cascading infection or demonic manifestation. Strategic disappearance preserves wars, economies, and faith through calculated sacrifice. Leaked Mechanicus probability matrices suggest single-vessel losses prevent sector-wide collapse at statistically acceptable rates. 15,000 souls become the operational cost of keeping millions at war. The ecclesiarchy provides moral framework through the final ward doctrine, sacred spaces where faithful die beyond sight so others may live. Sermons praise these unknown martyrs while avoiding specifics of their sacrifice. Cardinal Bucharest's reforms created vessels that heal without fighting. The Concordat ensures they die without returning when healing fails. Ordo Sepulturum operationalizes abandonment through remote last rites transmitted via astropathic channels, blessing souls they will never see. Mechanicus engine seers calculate optimal casket drive jettison schedules to minimize warp predation, living crew ejected in blessed containers, denying demonic entities the satisfaction of corruption. Death becomes sacrament when administered according to proper protocols. The mercy writ of scuttling proves genuine rather than ceremonial. Tri-seal authorization requiring commissar, canonist, and engine seer approval for engineered martyrdom. These documents were not created for desperate circumstances, but for systematic implementation of disposal doctrine. Vector stripping orders erase navigational data. Escort pickets receive separate recall signals. Astropathic channels throttle to single-direction catechism. Disarmament, once proclaimed as moral superiority, renders vessels helpless in the galaxy's most dangerous realm. Sacred vows become death sentences when protection fails. The ecclesiarchy's penitent gesture transforms into institutional vulnerability, exploited by policies treating helplessness as operational advantage. Authority hypocrisy crystallizes through documentary evidence. Sermons praise boundless mercy, while memos price it per tonnage. The same voices blessing mercy-class charters signed systematic abandonment orders when circumstances warranted. Harmony metrics reward those who keep ledgers clean through creative interpretation of mechanical failure as devotional irregularity. Moral inversion completes through linguistic transformation. Mercy becomes disposal. Healing becomes elimination. Protection becomes abandonment. Hospital ships carry their own death warrants, signed before departure and activated by astropathic signal. The ships that never return are not lost. They are deployed according to doctrine that sanctifies disposal while denying suffering. 3 case studies document translation extension outcomes, validating the doctrine's brutal arithmetic through divergent endpoints that illuminate systematic abandonment's operational reality. The Sancta Verena reappeared above Pilgrim's Moon in 084.M42, 3 centuries over O-Red designation. Her Geller hymns still looped through failing voxcasters, pitch-warped into frequencies that shattered shrine windows planetside. Time-lost survivors emerged from silent wards. Sister Cordelia unchanged, her journal entries continuing mid-sentence from centuries past. Guardsman Voss walking on legs that died before his descendants were born. They carried warp gifts, crystalline growths singing in glass-breaking frequencies, wounds weeping blessed oils, voices speaking tongues no confessor recognized. Their arrival ignited slow catastrophe. Within 48 hours, Pilgrim's Moon reported spontaneous stigmata among the faithful. Shrine world choirs began harmonizing with frequencies emerging from empty air. The Ordo Sepulturum's response followed established protocol, orbital sterilization using the ship's own Mercy Kyrie transmission as targeting coordinates. The Forbidden Addendum had summoned annihilation, not rescue. Pilgrim's moon burned clean, 20 million souls rendered into blessed ash to prevent sector-wide contamination. The Redoubt of Piety received its mercy. Writ under inquisitorial seal during the Gethsemane Plague of 901 M41. Tri-seal authorization activated according to doctrine. Casket drives armed with living crew rather than corpses, selected by calculus no one later admitted. Writing. Jettison schedules followed Mechanicus probability curves designed to starve warp predators of clustered vitality. Engines overpressured into self-immolation, while personnel sang the litany of final translation, their voices harmonizing with venting atmosphere. Official cause, catastrophic reactor surge. Actual result, engineered martyrdom, disguised as mechanical failure, removing choice through systematic elimination. The hand of beneficence fell to heretics in the maelstrom during 677 M41. Her medical bays transformed into altars where flesh priests performed surgical blasphemies. The vessel's distress code continued broadcasting as bait, drawing rescue ships to docking bays converted into slaughter chambers. Each responding vessel added to the heretic fleet. Hospital ships becoming plague hulks, spreading contamination through acts disguised as salvation. Payoffs accumulate through systematic revelation. The Forbidden Astropathic Addendum summons sterilization rather than rescue, transforming distress signals into targeting data. Casket drives serve the living more than the dead, preempting choice through mechanical inevitability rather than human decision. Preloaded containers ensure compliance through systematic design rather than desperate circumstance. Through fragmentary survivor testimony and administratum records, we glimpse the moral sediment these policies deposit on implementers. Sister Cordelia describes watching Commissar Thorne weep while activating casket drives, tears freezing in venting atmosphere. Navigator Quintanus speaks of sensing approaching sterilization fleets while understanding that rescue and annihilation wear identical faces. Testimony, when it escapes institutional containment, arrives damaged by design. Survivors carry knowledge that transforms faith into weight, memory into contagion requiring systematic quarantine. Medicash orderly Keth survived the Sancta Verena by hiding in ventilation shafts during the Geller breach, counting rivets in darkness while casket drives cycled with living cargo. Now sanctioned and silenced, he works a city infirmary on Mordian Prime, hands trembling when hymns drop pitch. His medical certification bears addendum clauses preventing testimony under pain of servitor conversion. A brand of administrative guilt marks his wrist, visible reminder that witness constitutes biohazard. He sets bones but cannot speak of what broke him, his report archived under triple seal, his voice translated into numbers. Guardsman Voss received discharge papers to Talarn 7, a world whose calendar doesn't match his service records. 3 centuries of warp time compressed into administrative convenience. His pension calculated from enlistment date, not subjective aging. He walks desert streets with legs that remember trenches from wars officially concluded before his birth. Crystalline scars singing when sandstorms approach. The administratum clerk stamped denied across his land petition with tired efficiency. At night, he wakes to phantom wait. Casket drives locking into place, then counts mercy kills, delivered so others wouldn't meet worse ends. Navigator Quintanus, third eye burned out by warp exposure, teaches astrogation basics at a pilgrim shelter. His lessons include warnings absent from standard curriculum, how to sense Geller instability before instruments register failure, why certain hymnal frequencies attract attention from beyond the veil. If the pitch changes, he tells children, do not listen. Pray softer. Make yourselves small. He shows them baseline frequencies that kept him sane, how to breathe with bulkhead tremors. The children repeat exercises without understanding their cost. Coping rituals curdle under institutional pressure. Counting the 1,000 transforms from imagined lives saved to mercy kills delivered. Bolt rounds administered to prevent corruption. Surgical terminations disguised as triage decisions. The arithmetic remains identical, only the moral framework inverts. Black markets emerge, trading absolution writs with forged seals, false medals for families needing proof that sacrifice had shape, synthetic memory blocks offering chemical amnesia for inconvenient testimony. Commissar Thorne purchased rotgut Amasek by the case, drinking himself to death beneath an Aquila he no longer believed protected anything. His service pistol remained loaded but unused, final mercy reserved for himself rather than subordinates. The priest wrote bravery on his death notice while truth wrote itself in the absence of ammunition. Institutional response treats memory as contagion, requiring systematic containment. Testimonies disappear into archives sealed under penance protocols. Witnesses receive posting orders to penitent colonies where their stories die with them. Krieg death worlds, catacomb jungle hells, mining asteroids where life expectancy measures in months. Silence becomes survival, forgetting becomes faith. Scribe Valdris appeared on an inquisitorial purge list 1 year after the Pax Misericordia's disappearance. His signature pattern across downgrade authorizations created audit trails connecting euphemistic reporting to systematic vessel loss. Accountability arrived, delayed but inevitable. Execution disguised as administrative transfer. Records purged through bureaucratic precision mirroring his own methods. An empire at permanent war balances ledgers more faithfully than it keeps vows. The mathematics governing translation extension reveal convergent calculations across imperial institutions, each arriving at identical conclusions through different vocabularies. Hull scarcity versus plague. Risk yields probability matrices where 15,000 souls weigh against sector-wide contamination, threatening 17 billion. Morale optics versus strategic necessity produces doctrine promising healing while preparing systematic abandonment. The arithmetic renders mercy economical when measured against alternatives. Mechanicus probability cogitators and Ministorum moral calculus converge through parallel processing. Tech priests calculate optimal sacrifice ratios, single vessel loss, preventing cascading system failure, while confessors determine acceptable martyrdom thresholds through doctrinal interpretation. Departamento Munitorum weighs replacement costs against quarantine expenses. Novice Nobilite measures escort allocation against warp storm probability. Each institution serves its function while their calculations align on systematic disposal. Casualty ledgers remain stable because losses are pre-modeled before departure authorization. O-Red designations integrate into planning cycles like ammunition requisitions, statistical projections accounting for vessel disappearance as operational overhead. Replacement regiments receive training orders before distress signals sound, deployment schedules synchronized with projected attrition rates. Scribe Valdris's euphemistic downgrades enabled this system. Mechanical failures reclassified as devotional irregularities, maintaining harmony metrics while masking genuine emergency patterns. Authority hypocrisy stands fully exposed through documentary evidence. Cardinal Bucharest delivers sermons extolling boundless mercy, while his signature authorizes Clause 17 CE implementation. Lord Admiral Kryn speaks of sacred protection while denying return vectors through sealed orders. Memos calculate mercy's price per displacement tonnage, while pulpits preach limitless compassion. The same voices blessing mercy-class charters signed systematic abandonment protocols when circumstances warranted. Translation extension serves multiple imperial needs simultaneously. Military morale remains stable through false promise. Soldiers fight believing rescue awaits wounded comrades. Problematic populations disappear from active rosters without administrative complications. Mutants, plague carriers. Witnesses to forbidden knowledge vanish into bureaucratic void. Personnel requiring extensive resources or showing corruption signs transfer seamlessly from healing protocols to elimination procedures. The system functions through compartmentalization, each component serving the whole while, denying knowledge of synthesis. Tech priests maintain Geller fields without questioning destination coordinates. Sisters, hospitaler heal wounds without examining casualty statistics. Navigators plot courses without cross-referencing return vectors. Commissars enforce compliance without acknowledging disposal doctrine. Scribes process forms without connecting euphemisms to human cost. The moral inversion completes through systematic revelation. Mercy becomes disposal when contamination exceeds devotional containment. Hope becomes containment when promise serves institutional needs better than delivery. Healing becomes elimination when cure costs exceed replacement expenses. Hospital ships carry death warrants activated by astropathic signal, their sacred disarmament transforming penitent gesture into exploitable vulnerability. Numbers do not weep. They return answers that justify wars continuing, tithes arriving, shrines staying full. The hospital ships that never return are not system failures but functioning margins, necessary waste products of an empire that cannot afford genuine compassion's true cost. 3 short pulses, 4 long, 1 final fading note. The Mercy Kyrie echoes eternally from somewhere in the Imperium, transmitted by votive lamps guttering in observation domes where no living hands tend them. In cathedral-hulled wards adrift between reality and nightmare, the signal continues. Not distress, call, but accounting entry, tallying souls processed through systems that transform mercy into disposal, hope into containment, healing into elimination. Medikey crews who survive develop quiet survival rules shared in whispers between shifts, the fasting of the 9th hour. Before warp translation, empty stomachs deny the warp easy purchase through failing Geller fields. Check chronometers thrice per watch for stutter marks indicating dimensional instability, even when reports will reclassify them as devotional irregularities. Name unrecorded. Dead under breath before purge alarms sound, giving identity to those who vanish from official tallies. Never listen when hymns change pitch. Make yourself smaller than your fear. These practices constitute prayer disguised as procedure, faith expressed through technical precision. The cautionary thesis stands plainly. Hospital ships that never return are not operational failures but functioning margins of an exhausted civilization. They serve as wards stretched across the warp to contain not only plague and corruption, but the Imperium's need to believe itself capable of mercy. Their disappearance represents systematic policy, not accident. All payoffs deliver. Authority behind denial vectors stands identified through Ministorum Inquisition concordats requiring tri-seal authorization. Clause 17. C translates as disposal authorization when contamination exceeds devotional containment thresholds. Silent wards exist for final containment of cases beyond conventional treatment. O-Red designations integrate systematic abandonment into planning cycles. The mercy writ of scuttling provides engineered martyrdom through bureaucratic precision. Each euphemism conceals elimination behind devotional rhetoric. The institutional logic stands complete. Mercy functions as resource management, healing allocated according to strategic necessity rather than medical need. Hope serves population control, promise sustaining morale while delivery remains optional. Healing doubles as elimination protocol when cure costs exceed replacement expenses. 15,000 souls weigh against 17 billion when plague threatens cascading system failure. Sergeant Voss stands at hab windows, unable to decide which war he survived. Navigator Quintanus teaches children to breathe with bulkhead tremors, softly, as predators sleep lightly. Astropath Varen's knuckles remember forbidden codes. Scribe Valdris's name disappears while his forms multiply eternally. Sister Cordelia's gloved hand closes a patient's eye in a ward that exists somewhere, always. Her touch remains gentle, despite knowledge that mercy and disposal wear identical faces. No triumph accompanies this gesture, only endurance, the quiet persistence of human care within systems designed to eliminate choice through mechanical inevitability. The Mercy Kyrie continues its eternal broadcast, 3 short, 4 long, 1 fading pulse, summoning not rescue but sterilization, not salvation, but systematic accounting of souls who trusted in mercy and received disposal instead.